Now with the E-40, you get to the Hall of Game and Record Haters is on there. And unlike a lot of your songs to this point, that's the first song on the album.
Right.
So, you know, you got album cuts before this, but when that comes out, and then the subject matter we'll get to in a second, but the actual being the first song, like how did you notice people reacted differently to hearing you right off the rip like that?
Right. I don't know. It's a crazy feeling because he was an artist that the people liked. So I had did an intro to Mac Mall's album, but it was just forget what album it is,
It
but
was Untouchable with the alligator. With the alligator.
Right, the alligator. So I did that, and then I did the drums on that same album to another one of his songs I did with Mike Mosley, whatever. So I was just kind of, I was like, right, you know too much. And so he was like, so I was getting on shit, but people really liked it 40. So when that, and I believe that album went gold. And so it was just a trip because, like I said, he walked in the studio, and I just started, and then I just, and then he just started, you know, sat down. It was cracking. We just put it like that, just happened, like so organically, man. And that's what I love about that. And I just told him, hey, bro, I don't want no money. I want my credit, back end, publishing, you know, all the shit, but I don't want no money up front. Just my main thing was getting my credits back then on something, and just the reality of it being a real thing. You could see my name on the credits, man. I just a big fan of the hip hop shit, and just not believing I'm entering into it and not knowing whether or not you're actually entering it. It's really happening, and just kind of day by day, like, okay, this shit really happening. That was the dope part of all of that. And making circumstances, because once I did that song, now we were in LA, Pac was there, Larrabee, 187, Yuck Mouth, a whole bunch of people's in there. They're mixing a song. And so I do circumstances while they're mixing, like, and the way I did that beat was, man, that was the dopest way I ever made a beat, because I couldn't hear none of the sounds together until they stopped mixing. So it's like I would put my headphones in the drum machine, make the beat pattern. Then I take the headphones out, and then I put the headphones into one of the modules, make the module sounds, take it out, put it in another one, another module, make another sound. The same thing, but I could never hear all the sounds together. You know what I'm saying? Until they stopped the mix and then play it all on the speakers. And that's first when I first heard Circumstances all together. And it's like, oh, we fucking with that. And I was like, damn, you know, the shit was just dope, man. Just how everything was coming together that was just another dope session.
Yeah, and Circumstances got 40s on it, the Loonies, like you said, Core 187, Cocaine's on it, Silly Cell. What's it? E-40 raps first on the song, of course, but with that, is it different as a producer because all those people have so many different styles to have one song? Like, how do you kind of manipulate or work with that, because there's so many different vocal tones, styles, the way they rap is so different, the speed of it?
Well, it wasn't nothing for me because I did it, and then they started rapping to the beat. So it wasn't like I kind of made it for everybody that was in there or nothing. I was just trying to make a hard ass beat, impress the room, and see if I deserve to be in this game, I guess, kind of a thing. And then once they heard it, they start coming up with a hook like penitentiary chance. They start singing, and and it just started happening organically. So I do think of things like that now. Back then, I would, especially that on that one, just some shit that happened. I wasn't thinking about vocal tones or any of that on that one. Just rather not the speed, probably, if somebody could, like 40 could, you know, do his thing on there, just doing it without it being too slow or too fast. But and there's space in there for them to bounce around, you know. Just like you said earlier about that Marvelous song that was like real simple and stripped down. You
Yeah.
know, and it's like some songs need that, especially with a certain tone of a rapper has a certain tone where you need to give them their space to sit right in the center and bounce and do what they need to do. But on that one, nah, I was just trying to make something hard, you know, and I was just juiced that they decided to even fuck with it. You know what I'm saying? It just started getting on the mic, and next you know, the song was done. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
And with back to record haters too, I've always been interested in the fact when people are doing songs where they're dissing,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it seems like people don't care who produced it
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of, oh man, now I got beef with them too because they made the beat.
Right.
Did anybody ever like look at you sideways because you made that beat or nah?
Nah. No, no, no.
Because I'll never forget. I asked West Side Connection, like, were they mad at Pete Rock after Common made the Bitchin' You and Pete Rock produced it? They were like, nah, he just made the beat. Like, we don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Right.
like, I always thought that was strange that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
we
sometimes it could be a crossover to you, but not in those cases that you referencing. Nothing, you know. I think maybe if the producer was a little more vocal or a little bit more visually with that person all the time, something in the brain would make you think, okay, you'd probably be mad at the producer. But for the most part, did nobody know who I was? Did nobody know? It was just the sound bed, and you know, they listened to him, Rasheed Wallace. You know, he doing his thing, you know, dissing him or whatever. But, you know, they got that shit straight and then everything was cool after that. They ended up talking like in Washington or something,
yeah.
getting it together. Yeah.
And like you had mentioned around this time too, you did the Mac Mall Untouchable with the intro and the outro
Mm-hmm.
instrumental beats. But
Mm-hmm.
then with the Ghetto Stardom song that you worked on also there, that one, um, even though you didn't produce it by yourself, the sound of it is way more optimistic or brighter than a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff you had done to that point or that you'd
Mm-hmm.
even worked on.
Yeah.
But the trick is Mac Mall is also talking about a lot of social commentary. Like that's an incredible song and very
Mm-hmm.
like talking about what's going on in our country.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it, the racial, negative, terrible stuff, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But but did you notice or do you ever notice, especially in that time when something is so serious and has like hefty meaning that the artist and or you guys as producers look at the beat or look at the creation differently or have a different
Mm-hmm.
perspective?
Oh yeah. But I honestly have to say, you know, I was more of a fly on the wall back then, adding in drums and doing what I was doing to help Mike produce it. But if I now, when you have an artist that it's basically a real artist, he has something to say. He has a nice delivery to say it. Vocal tone is nice, what resonates in your body, moves your water. You're like 80% water. So how you're gonna move the water in the people's bodies, smooth, jagged, whatever, and that makes you feel certain ways. So he had good texture, tone in his voice, and he's talking the shit, so you can feel him. I would like to make records like that, you know, heavy, thought provoking to go with the lyrics. Maybe change, you know, go up, you know, da 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 da, like it just didn't in crescendos and all kind of things you can do when you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the times I was learning like on that. So I guess I would say, yeah, it is something that you take into account and want to pump it up. You want to make that because it's you feel it and you know the crowd's gonna feel, people gonna feel it. But on that record, Ghetto Stardom, I was just juiced to be there. I didn't tell him anything. I don't even think I was there when he recorded that. I might have been though, but I think we was at K. Lou's in Richmond when we recorded that. But yeah, when need more Mac Mall, man. Shit.
Yeah, that was a great album, Untouchable, and one of my favorite album covers ever with the alligator.
Mm-hmm.
So that was crazy.
Yeah,
Now,
that was dope because he took me to New York to do that and master it. There's actually something weird going on with that song, and Master Guy fixed it. Then we were in New York with Fat Joe's like son's birthday party at McDonald's. It was all over the place. Like So that was interesting about fucking with Mac Mall is when we went up there, he took us to New York, took me and Mike to New York. And that's the first time I've been there. Well, actually, I hadn't, but in that capacity, that was the first time I've been there and doing songs and mastering and mixing. And so, yeah, shout out to Mac Mall for that.
Yeah. And Mac Mall at that time was on Relativity, E-40's on Jive, Richie Rich's on Def Jam, Marvelous on AWOL, all different labels. And then Tupac, of course, you work with around this time is on Death Row. What did you notice that was, if any, like the differences of working with or interacting with the labels, or were you not even at that level? You were just dealing with Mike Mosley, or how did
I was just dealing with Mike, and Death Row was a total different animal. When we went up there, the independent nature of the Bay Area is just like it's not like none other, but they were on a professional, just at another level, what I'm saying, musically, sonically, money, and just the whole LA thing. So when we went down there to work with Tupac on that album, when we came back changed. Everybody was a little different. Sibo was different. That's when you come with his group. It's like Tupac's Outlaws. He had like just how they were moving. The speakers, we wanted bigger speakers, because the Def Row had these, the mixing boards, the mixes, the sound, the structure of the songs, just how they were moving. They just changed us. When I say us, I say like AWOL, Mike Mosley, me, Sibo, maybe to a certain extent, E-40. It's just how they were doing it. It was just big, man. And so that changed, I think, a lot of people's perspective, but definitely ours in the Bay, like Sacramento Bay Area. Like we need to step up. They out there, and that's what we tried to do. So that's what I remember about Tupac in that era. It was big. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because the Bay is so much known for the hustle and independent. So it's interesting you're saying this, because Death Row, of course, had so much success, was with Interscope, was like the most powerful machine at the time, but that it affected your guys' perception and how because some people look at things different ways. They could see that and be like, oh man, we'll never achieve that. Wow. Or they could look like y'all did and be like, man, we need to step up. So what was it about you and the artists, the people you were around, that you think it wasn't like, oh, we can never do that? It was more, we need to step up.
Yeah, because you're already chasing it, so you're in it, and you already did a couple songs, so it's a reality, but you just got a dose of of which you're not there. You got a dose, and you're like, damn. It's more, I guess, like you said, it could be depending on the individual. And some individuals be like, man, fuck it, we'll never do. But it's more like a hustle. It's like, man, it was inspiring. It was awing and inspiring, just the way they were doing this shit. For me, sonically was the major thing. Like musically, they're just way better at that point than me, and just so much to learn from engineering, mixing your snare, your kick, your hi, like just even the smaller things, just for a producer, they were just on another level. Dr. Dre was at his pinnacle, you know what I mean? And the producers over there and the engineers and then how they move. So I think like Freddie T, he was owner of AWOL, he could look at the owner of Death Row and get inspired, like Suge and Dre, and be like, man, I want to move more like this. And Sibo could look at Tupac as an artist and be like, man, I like how they move. Everybody had their own inspiration. Me looking at the producers and Sonics and the studio, and I'm getting inspired by that. And at the same time, we're touching him. We're right there working with him. So we know we're good enough to be here and working, but it's so much better. So there at every facet, there's somebody to be inspired. The execs all the way down to the engineers, to the studio builders, people mixing, but everybody was inspired. You know, when we came back, we were inspired. Like, definitely.
Y'all were trading war stories for real.
And I want you to listen real close to me. I'm going to ask you some real simple questions, and I want some real simple answers. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
You said that you couldn't have possibly been at the crime scene at 11:15 because you were in the bookstore buying my audio book and my hardcover book at 11:15 when the crime scene occurred in Soren's book.
The History of Gangster Rap.
So you couldn't have been at the crime scene because you were buying the books.
Right. At 11:15, I was at the bookstore at 11:15, and when I bought the books and accidentally left them at the store.
So at 11:15, you couldn't have been at the crime scene because you were buying books, right?
At 11:15, when I was leaving, it was some people coming in, and I forgot to grab.
But you don't remember who
what they look like.
What they look like or nothing, right?
No.
So, at 12:15, you were in the bookstore buying my audio book and hardcover book and Soren's book at 12:15. So you couldn't have been at the scene because you were buying the books, right?
Yeah, at 12:15 exactly, I was at the bookstore.
Now you see. You know you done fucked up.
What you mean?
First you said you were at the bookstore at 11:15, and then you said it was 12:15. You know you done fucked up, man.
He fucked up.
Yeah, he fucked up. He fucked up.
Man, you confusing me, man.
So, you get my book, my audio book, 40 years, and Soren's book, History of Gangster Rap, and if you don't, you know you done fucked up, right?
Man, the more those cops ask me questions, the more I wish I bought them motherfucking books.